Hello, welcome to Conscious TV. I'm Ian McNay, and today our guest in the studio is Tim Freke. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
And Tim, what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about your history, your life, especially focused on meditation, how you started and how important it was to you and how you meditate now, and maybe some tips for people too that haven't meditated much before. And we're going to finish the program with a meditation of 7 or 8 minutes. So I should first mention that you have a book out, How Long Is Now, which I've read, and it's quite a fascinating read, so I do recommend that to people. And it does include some meditations in here. So Tim, I know from what we've been talking about earlier that actually you started to meditate around 15 years old, which is very young.
I guess it is. There was an awful lot in the air when I was 15. Meditation was beginning to come in, and I had a fascination for the mystery of existence. You know, what is life? Why are we here? And meditation seemed to be offering some insight into this, to take you to a state of consciousness in which you could understand these things directly, not through just having ideas about them, but by actually experiencing a transformation of your very being.
So how did you first start to meditate? Did you go to a course, or did you pick up a book, or how did you?
Well, I mean, partly I think it was just spontaneous. I would just sit very quietly, and I made a little, when I was 15, I made a little altar for myself in which I gathered together.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
in which I gathered together all of these things which seemed important to me. So I had a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching and Gandhi's autobiography and various little knickknacks, and you know, I'd put a flower on it, and then I'd sit in front of it and think, right, okay, let's meditate. And I'd just be quiet at that time. In a way, my journey has been through something which was just spontaneous, through many formalities and learning lots of techniques and trying out many, many different forms of meditation, back to where I am today, which is kind of where I started, not with an altar now, but just with a spontaneous sinking into something deeper. But having said that, the journey through the different techniques was interesting and taught me a lot.
And having this altar or this little kind of section in a room in your house, that's very important, isn't it? Because that sort of grounds you, and that brings you back to the space where you know, I'm going to meditate here.
Yes, it really can be. If you have an area where you can associate it with that particular state, and when I've been lucky enough to have a meditation room, before I had a family, that was a great bonus, and it would be the most important room in the house to me, was because it would be a space, often very empty, which just to walk in, I'd go, oh yeah, I remember. This is the place where I can go into that other state, where I can let go of this, let go of my story, let go of my worries and my life for half an hour, or whatever, a day, and sink into my deepest being and experience what I am, and feel refreshed through that.
So when you started at 15 years old, was it easy for you, or did you find your mind was wandering a lot? What? I know it's a long time ago.
It is a long time ago, Ian, and I don't really know the answer to it. And I suspect it was then, as throughout, a bit of both. You know, sometimes it just opens up. Sometimes there's a lot of agitation. You know, it feels like the weather. You know,
yes.
Sometimes it's rainy, some days it's sunny, and that's the weather, and the mind is like that.
I know you had an experience when you were 12 years old, which was quite a deep experience. Why don't you just tell us briefly what happened?
Well, because I was so fascinated by the mystery of existence, I used to think about it a lot, and one day, just sitting on this hill in my hometown, this other state, what I now call being deep awake, just opened up, and there's this profound oneness, this all-embracing love, and a sense of waking up from a dream, of being in this, coming home. And what meditation offers is one way that you can connect to that other state of consciousness, the deep awake state. So what it's been for me has been a way of going, how can I go deeper into that state that I stumbled upon or happened by grace, whatever, when I was 12 years old, which made such a profound impact on me, because finally I felt like it was the right place to be. I was in love with life. And when I'm in love with life, it feels good. It feels right.
And So these days, when you're really busy and you've been dashing around promoting books. I know you've written over 20 books, so there's a lot to promote.
It's been busy.
Yeah, and you're kind of on flights and things
Yep.
and different time zones. When you sit down and your mind's really busy to start with, what technique do you use?
The older I've got, the more simple things have become. So for me, the breath, which is the most obvious and basic of meditation techniques, is the most powerful. Because there is something so delicious about breathing, so sensual, that just to come into the moment with the breath as it comes in and out, it's such a delight, that feeling, and to relax the body into it. It's just such a relief. Ah, breath. And from that, there's a certain stillness. Now, it doesn't mean, see, whether the mind stops or not, to me, is not the issue. The mind's fine. The mind's not an enemy. I spent years thinking it was, but it really isn't. The mind is a great thing. We're using it now.
So you let your mind still do its thing?
The mind does its thing. The body does its thing. You know, everything just... But what you're doing, for me, in its deepest sense in meditation, is you're becoming conscious that you are conscious. So rather than paying attention to your experience, you turn attention back on itself. So you're conscious of the experiencer. What is awareness? What is that's witnessing this moment? And it's like sinking into this huge ocean of awareness. And the more, this is still going on, but it's not where my attention is now. It's happening, there's thoughts. Now the stillness is important because if the thoughts are very agitated, it's very hard not to pay them attention. It's like if you're in pain, it's very hard not to pay it attention. But if you can just let it be, there's this big oceanic spacious presence that we are, which opens up. And it's actually, one way of seeing it is it's very much like entering the state we go to in deep sleep, but consciously. It's like deep sleep is our very being. That's what we are. We are this big awareness, but it's unconscious in deep sleep. In meditation, you're entering that same beautiful, you know what it's like when you wake up in the morning and you're refreshed, and so, you know, you kind of remember it, don't you, just that kind of, ooh, that was nice, that felt so good, and everything was relaxed, but you weren't conscious at the time. In meditation, you're diving back into that big space, but consciously. Now, of course, the danger is, the most obvious thing to happen is you actually fall asleep. And anyone who's meditated will know that you're gone. So you need something to keep you conscious. And what the breath does is it just keeps you here. I'm conscious, I'm with my breath, I'm not asleep, but I'm conscious of that big oneness, which I enter unconsciously in deep sleep. And that's why I call it being deep awake. And meditation will allow you to do that.
Do you find postures important?
Well, you know, you're talking to someone who did a lot of that and now doesn't do any of that. And giving other people advice is something I'm always wary of, because it really depends on where you're at. You know, if you feel you want to explore the fact that, you know, if you've got an upright back, you're more likely to stay awake. You know, I sit in the lotus position, you know, and do it all, and people are always very impressed, and, you know, oh, look, he looks like a meditator. But it's not to do with that. It's not really to do with whether you've got a straight back and you can cross your legs in a weird way. It's to do with what happens internally. It's to do with where you put your awareness. So, you know, personally now, I'm much more inclined to just sit in a chair or even just lie in bed.
It's
and just
being
relax.
Comfortable,
Comfort.
being relaxed.
I want to be comfortable. I want to enjoy the experience. You know, I don't like the word discipline, personally. It always sounds a bit scary. It sounds like going to the dentist. You know, if you set it up as a practice, a discipline, I must do it, you won't. That's my experience, most people. Yeah. I mean, I know loads of people who think, oh, if only I was meditating, I should be. And it's just another thing on the list. You know, make a living, look after the kids, meditate every day. You know, it doesn't happen. For me, the key is that meditation is a pleasure. It's a delight. It's an exploration. It's a chance to just be with life instead of having to do all the time. And the doing is really important, but how precious to have some being. You know, on the way here in the London Underground today.
You were having a meditation
well, all the time. I mean, that's where I really want to meditate. Yeah. I'm sitting in the Underground, or I'm, you know, on a bus, or I'm traveling in a train, or I'm, you know, whatever. All of those times. That's the time, all the time. Any time you've got a minute, whoa, let's go there.